Good day and welcome back to another DB Legends video. In this video we are going to be taking a look at just how good the Super Saiyan God SS Vegito is after his Zenkai awakening. Now obviously this guy Zenkai awakened during the 7th anniversary, but yeah, it took me a while to get the Zenkai souls for him. I also had to get him to 7-star. But yeah, generally speaking, he's pretty solid, and I think it's pretty interesting to see just how good he is. So in terms of his overall performance, and in terms of the current cards, so obviously, he randomly destroys one card, or randomly destroys one of your own cards with his main ability. This allows you to immediately draw a final rush impact or impact rush. You'll restore your own health by 20% and ki by 50%. You get plus 40% to damage inflicted for 20 timer counts, and you reduce damage received by 20% for 20 timer counts, which is all pretty solid. Then in terms of his unique abilities, he will gain 50% damage inflicted when he enters the battlefield. He'll reduce damage received by 30% for 15 timer counts. He will nullify attribute downgrades and abnormal conditions, and he will draw a special arts card next. He will also knock back the enemy to long range if a cover change is performed against their blast attack, and he will also get 30% damage inflicted against fusion warrior enemies. Basically, he will also get additional bonuses depending on which enemy he faces. So he gets 40% to strike damage inflicted if facing a melee, 40% to blast damage inflicted if facing a ranged, increase arch draw cards when facing a support type, or minus 30% or a 30% debuff to the enemy's sustained damage if they are a defense type. He will also draw a strike arts card whenever he lands a strike arts card for twice. He will get his own ki back, 5 ki. He will also inflict the enemy with an attribute downgrade, minus 100% to health restoration, and reduce their ki restoration as well. He's really good at locking people up. Because he's got that draw card speed increase, he's got great ways to hold back their ki and health regeneration, so he's really solid. In terms of everything else, he reduces further damage received by 10% when 2 allies are defeated. He restores his health by 15% when that occurs, and basically if he evades an enemy attack with a vanishing step, he gets a reduction to his strike odds cost and increase to his strike damage. So pretty interesting. Obviously a big thing about this guy, I think, is that he doesn't have the highest level of damage reduction. He's only got the 30% for the first 15 seconds, and then he gets another 10%, obviously if he is the only member left. So he's kind of like someone you really got to keep the combo up with to really see the best out of him. But generally speaking, he can do a lot of damage once he gets going, and he also just does a lot. Like, he debuffs them. As you can see, we're running a lot of debuffs. If we had hit with the strike there, we would have had 20% extra damage. But yeah, it's a pretty good opening salvo from him, half the health, and ultra rare Vegito is a pretty tanky unit. Obviously a super duper tanky unit himself. So I think Vegito's Zenkai was not as much as people wanted, but I think he was already still a very decent unit. So I think him getting a Zenkai like this actually kind of works in the long run. I think it makes him pretty viable, at least for the most part. He still has his strengths, which is his ability to really combo into some impressive damage. Like, as you can see here, we did some good damage. We managed to combo into the support card. We're going to combo in again, and we finish off practically finish off the ultra rare Vegito, which is pretty solid when you think just, in general, how tanky that unit is. So it's obviously something that's very impressive when you talk about SS Vegito. I think you definitely can see, and this is a SS Vegito that's not 14-star. This is just the bare minimum you need to get him Zenkai, so it's a pretty good starting point, I want to say. and he looks really solid overall. So for me, I quite like him. Obviously, the reduction to health restoration and ki really does help him out quite a bit. Allows you to really affect some of those regen teams and just kind of disrupt your opponent's gameplay. Not to mention, you can combo in pretty well with obviously that kind of card art draw increases, the ability to constantly draw strike cards, the ability to combo into strike cards from other strike cards. Generally speaking, you just have like a very decent amount of control, and you have a lot of ways to maintain your combo, which I think is something very important. So yeah, overall I really like SS God Vegito. I think he's still pretty decent. I think he does take a little bit of time to get going, but once he starts stacking up these debuffs, I mean, you can see just how many he's really starting to stack and how much it affects with your opponent. Like, you can just keep going and going and going, and when you switch him out and switch him back in, that strike arts ability to draw a strike arts card comes back. So you just keep going and going and going, and it's pretty like controlling and dominating in terms of your opponent. It can be quite demoralizing, and it can really kind of keep your opponent like under severe control and just kind of prevent them from having a fun time, which is a fun unit to use, if you get what I'm saying. He's good to use in bursts. I always feel like switching him in to get a combo going and letting him really just dish out some damage and then switching him back out is always kind of the best way to go with this guy. And then, you know, if he's the last unit standing, you still have the ability to really rinse up some big damage. So yeah, he's really, really solid for me. And I think overall he's quite nice. I think if there's one thing I would point out in terms of how to use him properly, his final Kamehameha is pretty solid in that it inflicts him with no switching, which is obviously pretty good, which I think is obviously something that's, I want to say is really, really solid. And then the final impact rush also nullifies cover change. So if you are going to use them, just remember those abilities and how they function, because whenever you have a unit that nullifies cover change, especially in legends nowadays, so many people they have cover change mechanics. They have units that do cover change mechanics. Generally speaking, it's very difficult to kind of control how these units go, and I think like when you have the ability to nullify that cover change, it gives you a lot of strength and ability to kind of just bring things back against your opponent. But you can see, I mean, he's doing some decent damage, even against the green Goku. He's doing some really decent damage. Nothing crazy. Again, there's a lot you can do. I think in terms of refinement, I can definitely refine my equipment for him as well. You definitely can kind of boost his equipment quite a lot. In terms of the equipment I'm using, you would have seen a snapshot of it, but there are some notable, really, really top choice equipments, and then I think there's two that are definite uses, and then I think you can kind of shuffle through all the other ones if need be. But the Awaken, come on and give me your best shot, number one. That's the kind of Vegito one. Is really good. It gives him base critical, which is very good. Gives him base blast defense and gives him base blast or base strike attack. Generally speaking, try and aim for the strike attack. Obviously, it's generally the best, but the critical is really good. Defense is obviously really suitable for him, especially blast defense, because he doesn't have a lot of damage reduction. So trying to grab some of that defense and that defense reduction is going to be very, very helpful. Then we have the Awakened You Stay Here, number one. Also very solid gear. Lots more defense, base strike defense, base blast defense, but also gives them an additional strike damage attack for future members. Obviously it's more usable on a future based team. If you're not going to be using a future based team, then rather go for something like the Awakened I'll show you, which is a very good equipment. It gives you base strike damage, special move damage, base blast attack, or base strike. Again, try and aim for the strike, base health, and ultimate damage. So That's a very, very good one if you're just going to go for a generic team. And then he's got his platinum equip. Well, not his platinum equip, but he's got a platinum equip, which is for Future Saga enemies, and it's also pretty good. Base strike defense at 30%, base blast defense at 20%, base health at 10%, and health restoration at 10%. Obviously, not a lot of high impact gear that I mentioned, at least in my build. Generally speaking, I'm running a bit more defenses just to kind of supplement that very low 30% damage reduction that he has. But I still think overall he's pretty useful. I think running that equipment is pretty solid on him. Obviously, again, I am going for a more defensive kind of build, in a sense that I'm just trying to supplement those slightly lower damage reduction abilities that he has. But you can get natural offense from him, and the crit strike, and if you get all of the strike card abilities on that, you're going to be having a much better time. You can see here, there's a lot of usability in him beyond like just, you know, damage. Like, we just removed a lot of Goku's buffs. Obviously we didn't manage to unfortunately get the switch out, but we managed to remove a ton of Goku's buffs, and we come in here and we gain health back. You can see that mechanic really kicking in, and we're gonna chuck down Goku a little bit here. Gonna do some really solid damage here. You know, all of the strike attacks are really gonna start building up, start applying the debuffs. You start really eating away at his health, and yeah, you just generally speaking do quite a lot of damage. I mean, you can see here we really sync up everything quite nicely. Wait for him to move, manage to get the Dakabi impact. We lose the Dakabi impact. Now, unfortunately, obviously, you know, he's not the biggest defensive unit in the world, and we're gonna get kind of taken out here with the ultimate attack. But you know, honestly speaking, like, with just considering the sheer amount of the sheer amount of damage that we did there, and the fact that with slightly better play we could have beaten the green Goku at the end there, just shows the power of his strike attacks and how they all sync up together. So I think that's really, really good. I think, yeah, SS God Vegito is super solid. And yeah, I think, you know, for the most part, you do get a lot of value from it. I think his Zenkai is solid. And yeah, he works on a decent number of teams. You know, he works on Fusion. He works on, obviously, Future. He works on Pure Saiyans as well because of how Legends works. So you got a lot of like decent teams. Obviously himself and his Z abilities. And how he meshes, yeah, I think he's best on kind of like a Fusion Warrior based team, because obviously he's best on a Fusion Warrior or God Key based team, but he supports Fusion Warrior, God Key, Future, so you got plenty of teams and options to run him on. So yeah, just don't feel like overtly pressured to run him on one team or on another. Generally speaking, he'll do a great job on pretty much any of them, which I think is always like a good job. This guy's team is just terrible, so I'm not really going to focus on using Vegito. I think we've seen enough of Vegito. I think we've seen enough of how he does. I think we've seen enough of what he does. I think we've seen a pretty good showcase, really, of what he brings to the table. And yeah, I think overall he's just a super solid unit. I can't really say too much about him. I think he's up there. I definitely would use him on Fusion Warriors. I am using him on Fusion Warriors basically. He's a great attack and just good unit to just dish out some big damage. He gives strike and base strike, attack and defense. So he's good to really beef yourself up against strike teams. So he's a nice way to also beef up your rotation against units like the green movie Goku, or even the like ultra rare Kaioken Goku. So yeah, overall he's pretty decent. Still not the tankiest unit in the world, so I think if you're expecting like a huge tank or something, then unfortunately I don't think Goku is the one for you. Sorry, I don't think Vegito. Got confused there, but I don't think Vegito is the one for you. But if you're looking for a unit that can dish out damage and some really good abilities, then I think this guy is definitely someone you can utilize. And he's someone who you'll have a lot of fun with, because I think he has a fun gameplay. It's very quick paced. It's very combo orientated, and it's very jump in and jump out. You know, you throw him in, you do a whole bunch of combos, you throw him back out, throw him back in, do a whole bunch of combos, throw him back out. It's very cool gameplay. Very quick paced, very like easily able to punish people, and yeah, just overall like a lot of fun to kind of, you know, run, I guess. Yeah, and then yeah, we just end up with, we're not ending up with the best opponents here. These last two have been absolutely shocking. So we're not going to, these last two matches I would just completely discount, but I think Vegito saw some pretty good gameplay. Obviously, from a PvP perspective, his direct counters are generally greens are obviously a big problem for him. Also, like any unit that can break his combo is also pretty good. If you don't get the ability to nullify cover change can actually break up his combos quite badly. And once his combos do break up, he does lose a lot of the benefit of his multiple striking attacks. So yeah, it is a bit of a problem. Obviously the Blast Guard, as you saw there, is incredibly helpful as an ability, just to kind of help to continue to combo your opponent. But yeah, generally speaking, any way someone can disrupt the combo is pretty good. And then obviously he's just not a tanky unit, so rotating him into damage is not going to get you anywhere. Rotating him into rising rushes is not going to get you anywhere. You're just going to end up taking a lot of, like, you're just going to end up getting killed. Like, I think if you saw in the previous match against Burley, we switched him in, just going to end up getting him killed, basically. But yeah, overall it was a pretty decent showcase from him. Obviously this is just a 7-star, so there is quite a difference between a 7-star and a 14-star. Just on raw stats alone, you are looking at, yeah, just on raw stats alone, you're looking at another 300,000 health. You're looking at about 10% increase across the board. Strike attack goes up quite a bit between a 7-star and a 14-star. But yeah, that's pretty much it from me, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, bye.